Hi everyone, Meier here to talk you through elegant shoe attire. Now this is something that you could have the perfect outfit, but then when it comes to the shoe, you're just not sure. Is this too formal? Is this too informal? Is this appropriate? Should I wear this to the workplace? Or is this something that I should wear to a cocktail party? So there are actual kind of guidelines that I have that I give in my online finishing program that I'm going to give you today to help you pick the perfect pair of shoes every single time. Is it okay to show your toes? When is it not? Should I wear flats, heels, wedges? When to wear what? Don't worry, I've got you covered. Today we're going to go through all the different types of heels, flats, shoes, so you know what's appropriate and when and why. Let's get started. Now, shoes are considered dress code, and dress codes have a lot of etiquette when it comes to the guidelines about what we wear, when, and why. So even the time of day will determine the type of shoe you might consider wearing. When you think of dress codes, we think of our outfit, but rarely do we also immediately think of the shoe. But the shoe is just as important as any other piece of clothing that we're wearing. So we're going to start with the least casual shoe and work our way up to a more formal shoe. Now, the first thing I want to start with about etiquette and dress codes is to talk about the time of day. So remember, 6 p.m. is sort of that marker where we identify formal versus informal, day and night. So 6 p.m. is when we see the formal. That's post 6 p.m. is black tie. Pre 6 p.m. is considered day attire. Let's talk about flip-flops. So flip-flops are, shoes that we see often in very informal situations, very hot climates. You might see them in tropical climates. Growing up in Florida, so many people wear flip-flops. I wore flip-flops growing up in Florida. So I think it depends on where you are. Are you going to the beach? Are you, where are you going? I think that's the first question. And also, the climate, of course, has to do with it. Now, I just want to state that flip-flops are seen as the least formal shoe of all the shoes that we could have. Is it wrong to wear a flip-flop? Absolutely not. It just depends on when and where. If you're going to a spa, a flip-flop might be a perfect shoe. If you're, in a beachy community, there might be a perfectly fine shoe to wear. But if you want to elevate that, I would recommend something like this. So something that is a slider, we call these sliders. It's still a flat. And instead of the flip-flop, which makes that sound, that flip-flop, clanky sound every time you walk, so it's going to elevate your look, but also not have the noise of the flip-flop. Is it fine to wear flip-flops? Of course it is. It's just a matter of when and where, the formality of the event or what you're doing. Are you running errands in Florida, or are you going to a lunch? Just, take those things into consideration. I'm not saying anything is wrong or right. I'm just giving my advice in terms of how to elevate elegant footwear. Next, we're going to talk about the flat. So is it appropriate to wear flats socially, in business? Absolutely. I love a good flat. I love, for me, I wear flats all the time. I might be running in between my courses up and down Fifth Avenue, or I might be, hopping on a plane to go somewhere to teach a keynote, who knows? And I might need to move fast. And sometimes heels aren't comfortable. Maybe they're not healthy for my body. Maybe they're not comfortable for me. And that's absolutely fine. You can get a beautiful elevated flat that I think looks just as polished as a heel. You do not have to wear heels. If people say you have to wear heels, you have to, for a certain formality or level of elevation, I don't agree with that. I think there's some beautiful flat shoes out there. If you are wearing a flat, I would say make sure you're paying attention to the material. So is there some sort of, maybe is there a shine along the shoe? If it's, this would be called sort of a ballet flat is what we traditionally call these. So is there a black polished leather or whatever color, a nude or neutral color for you? Is there, maybe it's navy blue, is there a patent leather or shine to your flat that will elevate it a little bit? Is there a little bow or a little detailing or something like that that makes the shoe a little bit more elevated than just a cotton or another material like that. So that's my opinion on flats. I think they're beautiful and maybe even a great, more comfortable option for you that you can dress up or down when you need to with an outfit. The wedge. So you see this picture up here. This is a classic wedge. It can be made of many different materials. It could be leather. It could be something more like a raffia material, which we see a lot in summers. But regardless, remember that a wedge is considered an informal shoe. This is also considered day attire when it comes to formal etiquette. So if you had, for example, a garden party, this is a fantastic day attire shoe to wear to a garden party that took place, let's say at 2 p.m., 2 to 4 p.m., maybe in summertime. Perfect shoe to wear, especially because in a garden, you'll have uneven surfaces, you'll have grass, you'll have maybe gravel, you're walking through a garden. So it allows that stability with the wedge, and also, you're not sinking into grass. Now, a wedge is also a great option for a polo party, or for example, a daytime tennis match. So think about Wimbledon in the UK, or think about the US Open. These would be great shoe choices to wear to an event like that. Now, after 6 p.m., I personally don't wear wedges. They're seen as an informal day attire shoe, but then after that 6 p.m., then they're seen as a little too informal in many environments, even countries in the Western world. For example, in the UK, you rarely would see that post 6 p.m. And so also in the US as well, that would be a day shoe. Now, an alternative to a wedge could be a block heel. So again, if you're on kind of any kind of grass or garden or something where you need a little bit of a thicker heel that's not going to allow you to sink into a surface, sand, anything like that, a block heel is a great option. This is actually called a Mary Jane, which is that kind of the line that goes down the center of the shoe. That's just the style of shoe, but this is a great alternative to a wedge, which dresses it up a little bit and also could bring you day to night. So if you've got an event that say starts at 4, is at a polo game, but it's going to go to say 8 p.m., maybe you would go more block heel than wedge in that scenario. So keep that in mind as an option. Now, another one here's another example of a block heel. This would be more for me for business. I think a block heel is a great heel to wear to the office and also goes day to night beautifully. So if you have a cocktail party or something like that, this could be an excellent option for you. I wear these all the time. Also, I think anything that is a patent leather, a shine, kind of has a sheen to it, any kind of, shine like that gives that shoe a little bit of an elevation and goes from informal to formal. So this would be a great shoe for the office, but then also would allow you to go on a date later, or allow you to go visit friends for cocktails and go into the night to dinner. So something like this would be a great option. One thing to note about shoes in business. So remember this, that closed-toed shoes are seen as more formal for business. So it depends on, really, truly, it depends on what type of business you're in to determine if it's appropriate etiquette-wise to wear open-toed or closed-toed. So for example, if you're in a more corporate environment, let's say a bank or a law firm, then I would recommend closed-toe as shoes. So the more formal the work environment you're in, the more likely you'll see the toe of the shoe closed. So that's something to keep in mind there when it comes to formal etiquette. Now, if you work at a very informal, marketing agency or PR firm and it's summer, then maybe you'll see more open toes out, and that might be appropriate for the work environment you're in. My rule of thumb for dressing for work, but especially when it comes to shoes, really, it's to dress for the company culture and the environment and the industry you're in. So look at all those different aspects. Look around at your senior level team members, people who are above you, people who are successful in the company, and emulate their style. So if they're more formal, then you should become more formal too, because they're successful. So you want to emulate that success in the dress code. Next, we have this sling back, which means it's closed toe, or it could be open as well, but it has this open sling back. So this is a great cocktail shoe. This is something that if this didn't have the diamond embellishments, I would say also a great work to cocktail event shoe. I think the diamond embellishment is stunning, but it makes it more post 6 p.m. So great cocktail shoe. Semi-formal, formal, even black tie shoe would be something like that with the crystal embellishment post 6 p.m. But a sling back also makes it a little bit less formal than a shoe that would have the entire closed toe plus closed back. So just one thing to point out there. Here's another example of a sling back shoe. And again, it has an embellishment, and then you can see just the back here is open. Sometimes these can be harder to walk in, so make sure you're not running in heels, which I think is a whole nother topic, but just another example of a sling back shoe. Next, let's talk about the mule. So a mule shoe is actually, it is closed toe, but then it doesn't have that sling back anymore. So it's almost a slide on. It's like a slipper almost. Think about very Marie Antoinette, this shoe, but it is something that slips on. This could be for a cocktail party. I would not wear this, especially because of the embellishments and the fun kind of aspects. I think this is a perfect cocktail party shoe. Let's just leave it at that. I think, it is not as formal as some other shoes because it is open back, but a stunning shoe and something that this is called a mule. Here is a classic, just closed toe pump. We call these pumps. So you'll see here, this is just a very simple, it's got a sheen to it. So I would wear these, to business. You could wear these business to cocktail. It's comfortable. It's got some really nice padding inside. It's easy to slip in extra padding if you need to. It is considered, this style of shoe for business. The closed toe makes it formal for business, and then the closed kind of backing also formal for business. So this could be pointed toe, round toe. I would say materials I love in a shoe is a leather, a patent leather, a suede shoe are all great options for business attire. And I think those are all great. Again, this is a sheen, so if you work at a little bit more of a trendy kind of job or something more fashionable, you might wear a metallic shoe like this, but I would have a pump. I have about 4 pair of pumps like this in just a classic black that I wear for work, when I'm teaching courses, when I'm going to meetings. And then if I'm kind of, in the office at Beaumont Etiquette with my team just for a day at work, I might have this on with a blazer and kind of like something underneath that. I've got another example. This one I would not wear to work because of the see-through nature. So I think this is a little bit more playful. This is something that I would wear, to cocktail or to black tie, something like that, if I wanted to elevate and be a little bit more playful. Now, when it comes to open toe, let's talk about this. So this pair of shoes here, you can see is completely open. So you see completely open here. And these shoes, really, they've got the wraparound, the ankle wraparound for support. So when I've got a shoe that has that open toe there, I always, for the most part, like to make sure I've got some sort of support on the top for my ankle, so that not only do you have the ankle support, but you've got the stability helping you with, and especially with a higher heel like this, you want to make sure that you're not going to be slipping out of a heel when you are walking into a room. But this is considered a formal heel. This would be for cocktail attire or black tie. You could also wear this day attire, but it would really dress up the outfit. Let's talk about platform shoes. So here on the screen, you can see an example of a platform. Now, a platform is a matter of taste and style. There we go through some decades where they're very trendy and some decades where they're not. And again, you can see here, this shoe, for example, has no platform. You see that? It has no platform. Then this shoe you're seeing on screen now has a platform, and you can see that extra cushion. Now, the reason why they have platforms is that means it's the heel typically is high and that platform is supporting the toes. So it's a matter of taste. I think if you choose a platform heel, make sure that you know how to walk properly in heels. It could be, the higher the heel and the higher the platform, the less stable people tend to look when they're walking. You could have the most beautiful shoe on, but if you don't know how to walk in it, then the whole look kind of falls apart and you look like you're teeter-tottering. I do have YouTube on walking in heels, so you can go back and find that if you'd like to learn how to walk in heels properly. Now, the one thing I'd like to say is I personally find platforms, the higher the platform, to be the more trendy it is. And it's not a matter of right or wrong or if it's appropriate, if it's not. There are some beautiful shoes and shoe brands out there that do a gorgeous platform. So the shoe that you see on screen here is an example of sort of typically speaking, the highest platform I tend to wear day to day. Now, in terms of heel heights, remember 2 to 3.5 inches is always considered for the most part within dress codes, a great formal shoe, great cocktail shoe. The smallest heel is typically called a kitten heel, and you'll see a picture of that on screen here, and that's about 1.5 to 2 inches, and it's considered almost a starter heel, and also stylistically, some people prefer to wear kitten heels. 3 to 4 inch heels are still, I think, very flattering, very elegant, and I wear 4-inch heels quite often. I think it's something that takes a little bit of practice if you're not comfortable walking in heels. If you are walking in heels, for me personally, when I wear heels, I find my posture corrects itself, and it makes me feel like I stand up taller when I enter a room. But again, if you're wearing flats, it's just about making sure your posture is still in tune. But I have many 4-inch heels that I think are super elegant and chic that I wear all the time. Anything over 4 inches, just make sure you know how to walk in them correctly. You could break an ankle quite easily. I think just, it's not the higher heel, the more elegant or the better in any way, shape, or form. Sometimes I would argue the opposite. So just if you do go above 4 inches, just proceed with caution. Make sure, check the platform and make sure you can walk elegantly in them. On that note, I hope you found this tutorial on shoe etiquette and style interesting. I would love to know what is of all of these shoes I've just listed, what is your go-to elevation shoe? Is it a flat? Is it a heel? Is it a wedge? So there's no right or wrong answer. It's a matter of style, preference. I'm just giving you my thoughts, my personal opinions today on what I wear, what I think looks elevated and sophisticated. And thank you so much for joining me. And I cannot wait to see you all next time.